And good evening. Welcome to Gator's Garage, the home of all things historical miniature gaming in Savannah, Georgia. We are continuing this week with our series of our takes on the intelligence reports regarding version 3 of Bolt Action. As you all know, Warlord Games will be dropping a new edition, version 3 of Bolt Action in September. They're releasing little intel reports kind of along, which all of us are finding quite interesting. As promised, they're making a lot of significant changes to both the game and the force structure. So now is a good time to maybe dust off that old Bolt Action collection and give it another run. Be thinking about what you may want to add in light of the new Army lists. And if you've not gotten into Bolt Action yet, well, there's a new starter kit coming out. So now's a good time to get into it. With us tonight, once again, is Randy Yan from the great city of Fitzgerald, Georgia,
Hey,
also a past champion at several tournaments. Say hi to the folks, Randy.
everybody, how you doing? We got a lot to talk about tonight. It's really getting interesting.
Fantastic. So, moving is fine, building troops is fine, but at the end of the day, you've got to have a way to shift those enemy forces off of the objective or keep them off your objective or get them off the table. And we do that with the shooting. And the shooting phase in Bolt Action is about to get a really major makeover. Um, First of all, the procedure is a little different. Declare target. Target reacts, and you can still go down.
Yep.
Then you measure your range. Remember, the bolt action does not allow pre-measuring. So if you call a shot and you can't hit it, well, you're done. Roll the hit, roll the damage. We're used to that. But then a cover save. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm sure Andy and I will have some interesting takes on that. Target takes casualties, and then if necessary, target checks morale. So far, what you think, Mr. Randy?
Yeah, so this is definitely a change from the way it's been run, and I really feel like they've kind of taken some of the black powder rules to, kind of make this a guideline on how to do it. Of course, the forces are a lot different. In black powder, you have units instead of individual guys, and you don't take casualties off the board. You just put pips down, but this is kind of looking similar to that.
Okay, similar in that I think I read somewhere that it's actually starting with a 4+ now to
Yeah,
shoot instead of a 3.
4+, just like black powder, and in black powder, and you get a hit, you get to roll a save. Um, so
Okay,
we don't,
yeah,
yeah,
I hadn't thought about that, so that could well be where that's coming from. So, for those of you that don't know the background of Warlord Games and Bolt Action, the Warlord crew, like so many folks, came out of Games Workshop, and like them or hate them, Games Workshop has really been the godfather of modern miniature wargaming. And one of the things that we've seen, that we commonly have seen in GW games, although it's been a while since I've played any, is what's called a saving roll. Usually that's associated with some type of armor, sometimes with cover. Well, now you're going to get a cover save. So that's going to be pretty interesting, um, as opposed to the cover modifying the chance to hit. So you've only got, 4 modifiers to hit. Did you move? Are you pinned? Are you inexperienced? Are you a point blank range, which I'm assuming is going to remain 6 inches? So you can still run up on somebody and hose them down. But if you're doing it over open ground, you may be in for a rude shock. They'll be hitting you a lot more easily.
yeah. So what you
Um,
see here is the number of modifiers is limited. So you're looking at the worst you can do is 6 instead of, it's looking like they may do away with 7s. The only way here you can get a 7 is if you're inexperienced, pinned, and on the move. But I'm thinking that they may cap it at 6 because they really haven't, you know, all the cover stuff's been taken away, down's been taken away of shooting. Basically, if you shoot at somebody, you're probably going to hit them, and then it's just a matter
and
of damaging, and then they have to save. So there's a lot going on there.
that's a really good question. I'd be real curious. I saw where someone was interviewing one of the development team on their podcast. I didn't get the name. I think he was on Reddit. But that is going to be a key question. Are we going to continue with the infamous 6+6 to get sevens? Or are we going to add in the as we've seen in other games, 6-4, 6-5, 6-6 to get 7, 8, and 9?
Yeah.
Or are we just going to cap it at 6 and say if you get a 6, you get a hit? I know that's how black powder
And
works.
that's how black powder
It,
is. So that makes me wonder.
right,
That's where they're going to do it.
right, sure. And there's something to be said for being within a company relatively consistent across your game systems. I've played a lot of games where where the 6 is always a hit.
Yeah.
They did take away the heavy 6, so if you get a 6 to hit and a 6 to wound, oh well, the guy you no longer get that special kill, so
Yeah.
that's gonna help a bit.
Yeah. One thing that they mentioned in their article was that they play tested this a lot to see
Right,
what works good. And so I think that's something that's going to really show when we start playing this.
right. Again, here's your cover saves table.
Yeah.
Hard cover and soft cover are still delineated, and then going down.
Yeah.
Uh, you get a 5+ or a +2 to your save modifier. So if you go down in hard cover, you're going to save on a 2+. If you go down in soft cover, you're going to save on a 3+. If you go down in the open, you're going to save on a 5+. So something to be said for that. Except the only
No,
downside is, pardon the
actually,
pun, you
no,
when you
actually, if you read this, if you're in the open, you get no save.
uh
Yeah. See, soft cover is 5. There's no
right, but if
in the open
yeah,
6.
but if you look at the sentence right above there, your
Right.
units can use the down order to make the most of any available cover, even when it looks
Right.
like there might not be none at all. So in the
Okay.
open, you're going to get that 5+.
Right. No.
If you go down,
If you go down, it will
right.
be you'll get a +2 modifier. So it'll
Well, if
be
you go down in the open, it's a 5+ modifier. If you go down in cover,
yeah.
it adds 2 to your modifier.
Yeah, but if you're in the open, you get no save.
You
If you're
do. You get a
wounded,
5+ if you're down.
if you're down, but if you're not down,
If you're down,
if you're just out in the open and not
right.
down, you're not going to get a save at all.
Which I mean, that's no different than what we have now. If you charge across an open field, I'm going to open up on you, and your
Yeah.
guys are going to be whatever your base to hit is, and there's no modifier for cover, just for range and my movement. So it's still no cover. It uh, it could make, to your point, it could make coming across the open more deadly. But if you're going up to 4+, that's going to help. And so far, I've not seen that 4+, Randy.
Yeah, to hit it is right down here in this little mini paragraph. You always scroll too far. Where no, at the bottom of the page. Right there. How can it keeps moving? Okay, now it's at the top.
Got it.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
So I've actually talked with Bo about this, and he was saying how a single shot weapon is going to be at a disadvantage. But if you look at tanks and guns with single shot, they no longer have to pay for cover, range, uh, penalties. So normally, say you're starting at 3, but if a unit's at long range and they're in cover, now all of a sudden you're hitting on a 5+ instead of a 4+. So
That's a
actually,
great point,
they have
Randy.
a better chance of hitting.
So what you're going to see at medium and long ranges is you're going to see a lot more hits at the
Mhm.
medium and long ranges. So
Yep.
basically over 12 inches, you're going to start to see a lot more hits. Over 18 with machine guns.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the cover is not going to help you other than a save.
I was gonna
And
say.
so here's the other thing. Now that we walk it through here, you know what more hits means? More pins.
Well, you still only get one pin, and
Right, but it's easier to get.
yeah, easier to get. However, if you'll notice the chart, no matter how many pins you've got, it's still only one minus. So you could have 5 pins or one pin, and you're still shooting at the same penalty. See, they
Right.
don't say per pin anymore. It just says fires pinned. So the only
Oh,
yeah, that's big. The
good
only one that's
catch.
really going to affect is an order test. You know, if you got 5 pins. Now, of course, we don't know that. We don't know what the rule book's going to say, but you know, it may be harder to pass an order check with 3 or 4 pins as opposed to one. But
Right. I would think they would say that because, you know, but now that's pretty interesting because one of the things that really has doomed units at times to combat ineffectiveness is when they get 3 or 4 pins on them.
well,
You're
and
getting a
yeah, that's the point
go
that
ahead.
they were making too. Is so like an artillery piece, if they pick up 2 or 3 pins, they're pretty much out of the game because if they
Right.
try to shoot and they pass the order test, they're still going to be firing at so many minuses they're not going to hit. So if they rally, they're out a turn and then they're probably going to hit the next round, and it just keeps them down. So no matter what, the worst they're going to have is a -1 to shoot. So it'll allow them to probably get in the game a little more than they have been. I know I've always taken uh, my recce jeep and I'll fire it at an artillery piece and then I'll shoot it with maybe my sniper, try to get some multiple pins on it to where it can't do anything.
Right. That's going to be real interesting because yeah, even with multiple pins on a unit, now you're still going to be able to lay down fire. Now, where
Mhm.
that could bite you and where that'll bite players if they're not paying attention is you'll be rocking along happy go lucky with 3 or 4 pins on you, and suddenly your unit drops to half strength and you've got to take a morale check, and now you've got 4 or 5 pins on
Yeah.
you, and so your unit goes from causing trouble to disappearing. So again, it's going to be our kind of our same old bolt action, but a lot different. And I think to everybody's point, possibly a bit more dynamic. Certainly, that -1 firing while pinned is definitely going to allow you to have more of your units engaged longer.
Yeah.
That's going to be good, I think.
Yeah. The other thing looking at here is your point blank range is now +2. So
Saw that.
that's going to favor units with SMGs big time.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
because now the SMG used to be, yeah, go ahead, Randy. I'll be quiet for a minute.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So, like, I've got to usually run my squad of commandos. I'll run 8 commandos and throw them in a truck, and they've all got submachine guns, and so they jump out at point blank range, out of the truck, maybe catch them in the open, and they spray 16 shots at a unit, hitting on what, twos, because they don't pay for movement,
If the enemy's in the open, yeah.
and they're in the open. Well, they'll still be hitting on twos regardless.
Yeah.
Now, if they're in the open, they're not going to get any saves. So every wound I get, they're going to die. But of course, if they're in cover, they'll get a save after But I'm going to get like 10, 12 hits with that kind of a number. So that's going to be huge. That'll be like a
Yep.
little Daka tank rolling across the table.
Yeah.
A human Daka tank.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know one of the things you and I were talking about is because your units will be subject to more attrition, you may well want to consider going with larger units.
Larger units and veteran.
Right. But I still say, as you know, I love to run light machine gun teams of 5 or 6 men,
Mm-hmm.
LMG, and then a support unit, run them as fire teams as opposed to full squads. I'll be real curious, when I face off against somebody who's got large squads versus my flexible machine gun teams to see how that works. I know, like say the I like to run my Fallschirmjäger. I like to run a Fallschirmjäger squad with literally 5 guys. So 2 light machine guns, 2 guys, and one commander. And I'm rolling out, I think 6 dice now. LMG stay at 4 or 5. It
They
stayed
did
at
the
4,
same.
didn't it?
They stayed the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the German LMG, if they keep the national rule, the German LMG team like that, I'll roll out 5 each. So
5.
10 shots out of 5 guys, which is just nasty. And if the leader's got like a submachine gun or an assault rifle or even a rifle, well, that's 11 shots. So
Yeah.
I'll be real curious to see how the two play against each other.
Yeah. One other thing that's interesting too is submachine guns at 12 inches are going to have the same chance to hit as a rifle.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's a brilliant observation that submachine guns suddenly become a lot more useful.
yeah, yeah,
And plus, submachine guns are an assault weapon, so they're not going to take any penalty for firing on the move.
yep. And then if you're
So
close too, you're probably going to get into close combat after shooting. So that's going to be another benefit to having that submachine gun on the guy.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the SMGs I think are going to be a lot more useful, almost as they were historically. Because I mean, the Russians. There was a reason the Russians equipped whole companies with submachine guns,
Yeah,
and some of it was that you didn't have to have as much skill, but some of it was you could put a lot of lead down. So that's going to be really, really interesting.
yeah. Something else too with Russians is think about the Russians with body armor now. You throw a veteran with body armor on and submachine guns, and how strong is that unit
Yeah,
going to be?
yeah, yeah. And again, I think this is where we get from history into gaming. Is I don't know how common the Russian body armor
Body armor.
was in real life, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I
But
hope.
it's it's going to be pretty common in the game, I would imagine. And why not, right? That's the difference between a game and a simulation. And we know that going in, and that's fine. It you
Yeah,
know it, it adds a little extra spice to your beer and pretzels there. Something else I was looking at here too oh yeah, and one of the things I think a lot of us are going to get snake bit on if we're not careful. You're not going to be able to hang those 2-man teams out there anymore.
yeah, yeah.
They're going to be just as vulnerable as the rest of your guys.
Or more
And
vulnerable because it's real easy to lose half your strength. I mean, you take one wound and you got to make a morale check.
that's a good point. Even in the current rules, that's one of
Hmm.
the challenges of running a 2-man team, even with that -1 modifier for
Yeah,
getting shot at. I saw the suggestion too from the uh, from the article here that now you're going to want to run probably more command squads than the. I know a lot of you guys. You run a 1-man command team. I run a 2-man command team because they're harder to hit.
yeah,
But now they're not going to be any less difficult to hit, and you don't want to lose that officer easy. So now suddenly you're going to go from having a command team, 2 guys, to more of a section, 3 or 4, or even 5, or even a command squad with full 10 guys,
yeah,
just to provide some meat shields for your officer.
yeah.
Um,
That and then it actually might become an effective squad. You got 6 guys with with rifles or even submachine guns because you don't all the weaponry is free. At least it is right now. So if you had 6 officers and you threw submachine guns on them, that's free. And now they're
that's a
spraying
great
out 12
point.
shots. Or
Yeah.
if you're lucky enough to be German, and you can have 6 assault rifles for free.
Well, and that'll be one of the things too. That's one of the things I would really like to see the community take a hard look at in how it's playing. Um, you hit a good point. The assault rifle, historically was a late war weapon,
Hmm.
and I would like to see people. And I know we've come out with the French coming out. There's been a little bit more look at the early war, but I'd like to see people play the other periods a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, Germans with assault rifles are a lot of fun. American squads with BARs are a blast. Pardon the pun. Um, but there's something to be said for playing with the basic infantry systems that the war opened up with and seeing how well you can do. Interestingly enough, that's pretty much how the French are equipped, and the games that we've seen played, the French have been competitive. So it's been pretty interesting. Now that may change with the new attachment rules and a higher recommended point list.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to the tournament in Columbus on August the 11th, and they're having Nothing after I think August of '43. So everything has to be
That's
early wars of
fantastic.
'43. Yeah. So I've had
Right?
to change my list quite a bit,
Yeah.
and a few things I took.
I think that's where local and even regional tournament organizers too can kind of change the flavor of a tournament. I'm still jazzed over that Axis versus Allies tournament we ran. I can't wait to do that again because it
Yeah.
was truly a themed tournament. That was really fantastic.
Yeah.
Don't know if we could get much more theme than either Axis versus Allies or early year. I'd love to do an all North Africa tournament, but as far as I know, I'm the only one in the group doing North Africa, so wouldn't really benefit.
Yeah.
Kind of fun though. So, all right. So the submachine guns are going to be becoming much more into their own. Command squads are going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Um, the whole thought here is that net we should see speeded up gameplay, and I think
Yeah.
just about all of us. And I know experienced players can generally run through a 1,200 point game in about 2 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah. 2 hours.
I'm really hoping with that these new rules kind of dial us closer to that 2 hour window.
Yeah. So what you're going to see with as far as because there's no penalty for long range now. So let's say you're shooting with a weapon that fires 60 inches or even 48 inches. And I think some of the heavy machine guns now are 48.
Heavy
So,
machine guns are now 48, which is as it should be.
so if I'm shooting across the board at somebody and I know the board's only 48 inches across, I don't need to measure. Whereas before you had to measure. So there's going to be a lot of times when you simply just don't need to measure. You know it's in range, unless it's something that's catty corner, and you have to measure to make sure it's going to be in range. You don't have to measure, and that's going to speed
It's a
up
great
play.
point, Randy. Yeah, and you're right. It's little things like that speed up gameplay.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
and somebody mentioned to me the other day about small teams and being down as far as shooting modifiers. So a lot of times, sometimes we'll forget, say, oh, I forgot their small team, and you got to sit here and figure all these little things out before you start shooting. And that can soak up some time right there. Whereas, it's in range, boom, I just roll my dice,
right,
a
right,
lot quicker, a lot quicker.
yeah, and almost looking back towards some of the board war games in that fact.
Hmm.
Um, they're saying that some of the weapons actually will ignore cover completely. Of course, flamethrowers will, and we
Well,
know.
we think they
Go
will.
ahead.
I believe HE will probably stay the same as far as ignoring cover.
Yep.
I think the only thing that'll probably affect it is if you want to go down and they might have it half the hits like it did before. I don't know.
Now, HE ignores soft cover, not hard cover, right?
No, it ignores cover. Period.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You spend a lot more time reading and playing these rules than I do. I
Yeah. I
juggle
think
between this and about four of the game systems.
the only time it let's see, it affects shooting when you're not in the building. So if you were like in the woods, I think it affects your shooting when you're in the woods, but it's not going to now because all those modifiers are out for shooting. So HE's
Wow.
probably going to become quite nasty.
Well, and it was.
Yeah.
That's been one of the things that I see not just for bolt action, but in a lot of the tactical games. Um, in some ways, artillery is underrepresented. I've read several places that most of your casualties in modern wars, World War II forward, is caused by artillery.
Yeah.
And certainly, if HE becomes where it's ignoring, you're ignoring your to hit, and who knows what it's going to do to your save.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus it's got the pen thing going on. So yeah, HE is going to become an even nastier customer to have to deal with, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's HE is nasty, and
Yeah.
again, as especially if you get caught in the open. And it's the best thing for digging troops out of any kind of cover.
Yeah, I think they're going to make it a lot more realistic. The game's going to become a lot more realistic. With the way they're building the forces now, with having to take platoons of artillery and an armored platoon and an infantry platoon
Right.
to build a force instead of just kind of throwing everything in one little pot and mixing it up, and calling
Right.
it a generic platoon. That's not the way the war was fought. It was individual platoons.
Yeah.
And
It's going to be,
there's going to be more
go
options
ahead.
going around. And I think that's going to be a good thing, because now all of a sudden you got these little morale bubbles all over the place to help you with these pins that are going to be, there's going to be more pins out, because it's going to be a lot easier to get that hit. You may not take
Right.
a wound, but you're going to get pinned.
Right. But then again, if you spend a turn to rally, that unit's out of action for a turn.
Yep. And you
So
only got six
that's going to
turns
be
in
your,
a game, so you can't do that too much.
no, not too much at all. I'll be curious to see what they do as far as new scenarios. Maybe what they do for length of game. Are they
Yeah.
going to keep it at 6? Or are they going to go out to 8? So that'll be interesting. That'll be very telling. So far, I mean, it's still at its core a good basic beer and pretzels World War II skirmish game, and there's a huge place for this game and this type of game within the hobby.
Yeah.
There are games at this scale that get a little bit more detailed. Seven coffins for Seven Brothers, I think, tends to get a little bit more detailed. Um, there's maybe one or two others and maybe folks can put that in the comments. But what we have with Bolt Action is a World War II themed tabletop war game that can be played either scenario driven or tournament driven,
Yeah.
and there's a lot to be said for that. Just looking over here to see if we're forgetting anything, but I'm telling you, I think that's it. The
Yeah.
article's on the.
It was a
Go
short
ahead, Randy.
article, but there's a lot in it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
They are changing the one of the mechanics of the game that they've kept through 2 editions and Conflict 47, and that's worth a sideways look. As you all know, Andy Chambers. If you don't know, Andy Chambers has taken over development of Conflict 47. He worked on Warhammer 40K, and I have a sneaky feeling that, and we've been begging and pleading for a second edition Conflict 47 since the second edition Bolt Action came out. Even before this, there was some significant differences in how Conflict 47's played versus Bolt Action, versus the current edition of Bolt Action. Even though they're really parallel universes, so I would imagine that this version 3 of Bolt Action coming out will probably put impetus toward getting a new version of Conflict 47. If you're not familiar with Conflict 47, unless they change it significantly when the new rules come out, you can take your bolt action World War II guys, add in some jump troops or heavy infantry or zombies or werewolves, something fantastic World War II from the K-47 line, and you're playing Conflict 47, which I've always thought is kind of cool. Allows you to take one set of miniatures and play at least two different types of games with those. And I'm always a big fan of getting the most use out of my miniatures that I spend hours and hours painting.
yeah.
So I think that's going to be good. As we mentioned, Randy, what do you think? You're going to be adding more troops to your forces?
Oh, yeah. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be adding some extra mortars. Um, I've already got 3 MMGs for my Americans, so I'm probably going to beef my British up to 3 MMGs. And also for the Americans, I'm going to start investing in the heavy machine gun teams,
Yes.
because that's going to be really good. For an extra 20 points, you're going to get that +1 penetration. It'll make it a lot easier to create a wound out there, and armored cars and soft skins are going to just hate trying to cross the field with 3 heavy machine guns firing in on it.
Right. Right now, the Mod Deuce, its only advantage is the +1. It
Yeah.
doesn't have any kind of range advantage.
No, actually,
which
it's
is still
48. No, it's 48 inches. Yeah, if
the
you look
heavy
at,
in the current rules.
yeah, so if you look at the Greyhound that's in that little screenshot,
No,
um,
Randy, the version two Modus
no,
is range
this is the
36.
starter kit, right? We're looking at
Right.
the
But what I'm saying is, hear me out. So the current version two with the Modus, the heavy,
oh yeah,
is
yeah,
range 36 plus
hmm,
one pen.
yeah,
So to your point, now we're going to add another 12 inches. You're still going to get the plus one pen. And oh, by the way, now you have the option and almost and the requirement to really feel that
uh,
as another platoon. And you're going to go from one HMG to three and be able to set up some really good
field,
cross fields of fire. And again,
yeah,
at 48 inches, you're reaching across most boards. And these longer ranges may even lend themselves to playing more of the lengthwise games because
yeah,
suddenly you're engaging at much longer ranges.
yeah, and that was a point somebody made too. Is like the standard rifle of the day was 300-400 yards effective range, and to the scale that we're playing on, everything's really in short range. There's no
Yeah,
long range on a 6x4 table.
no,
Um, and something I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I don't think there's going to be a drop in penetration for long range now because you don't have a long range. So if a weapon's got a +5 pin or a +1 pin, all the way out
right.
to full range, it's going to get that penetration.
And to your point, given the scale of the game,
Hmm.
it should,
Yeah.
especially the tank. The tank's almost on
Oh gosh, yeah.
anything. Yeah,
Tanks can
anything bigger
fire
than a
like
machine gun.
a mile
You know,
away and hit another tank.
right,
Especially the Americans
right.
that had the gyro stabilized turrets. They were much more
Well,
accurate.
the German 88s.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
My
British 17 pounders. I mean, pretty much any tank gun on the table should be able to reach anywhere on the table.
yeah.
So be real
The
curious to see what they do with that. I don't have the other article in front of me. I don't remember what the range was on that on the light and a tank gun, but I think it's still around 24 or 36 inches.
so the
Which
light anti-tank gun is 48 inches, and
okay,
have a short range of 24, which was really limiting because it's already a weak gun, and now you got to get fairly close to get full penetration. So it was almost totally ineffective against armor. So that's going to beef that light anti-tank gun up quite a bit.
so it's funny that you say that. I remember reading a write up on the Stuart, your favorite tank,
Oh yeah,
on the
I've
Stuart
got a
tank
few.
in mid-war, and this is Ballantyne's Illustrated History of World War II. If you get a chance, there are a collection of smaller books. Matter of fact, I'll look up on Amazon and put a link in the chat below. But this was specifically the book called Allied Armor, and they made a comment. They said, when it comes to the Stuart, a small gun, a thin armor precluded close combat, but a small gun demanded it. So you
Hmm,
know, but again, at this scale, you're not going to see a drop in penetration range. At least you should.
right.
We're playing. We're playing darn near man to man. We're not playing squad to squad or even platoon to platoon. So um, yeah, it's going to be a deadlier game, and deadlier makes for faster play. A lot less. It'll be
Yeah,
a lot less forgiving of mistakes, which some people will enjoy and some won't. I think it'll be like everything else that once you learn to use the tools, um, I think it's going to be an incredibly engaging game. All
yeah.
right, very good.
So next week, I think they're going to be talking about special rules.
Special rules next week.
So
Okay, I
that's going to be an interesting one. Probably going to be a lot in
was going
that.
to say so. Probably whatever your current special rule is, it's probably about to get nerfed.
Probably going to change.
That's right.
Gurkha,
That's right.
maybe some Gurkhas mentioned next week. I think
Yeah. We're going to mention Gurkhas, all right, usually with a swear word on either side.
it's a
But yeah,
four-letter
so
word, isn't it?
do what?
Gurkha's a four-letter word.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Wow. But yeah, so special rules next week. Be watching. We'll bring you a new video sometime next week, and we're just a couple of guys like you. We play the game. We play it, as often as we can. We study it a bit, and love talking to our friends. If you got a comment or a question, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Do all the YouTube things: like, subscribe, share. Tell us how much you love us. Tell us how much you hate us. But really, yeah, help us with building the channel.
Yeah,
Obviously,
send us
if
some lists.
do what?
Send us some lists to look over.
Yeah, if you wanna send a list, you can send it to gatorgameswayx at gmail.com. That email address will be in the comment section. And if you feel the need to bulk your armies up, like Randy's talking about, Gator Games and Books is happy to help you. Generally, we get anything that Warlord makes, we can put our hands on. We're carrying a good range also of resin tanks by Tina's Tiny Tanks. We've got some more SKUs we're getting ready to bring online. So, got a lot of things going on here. Really excited about Bolt Action coming out. Looking forward, heavens, even I'm looking forward to adding a couple of tanks to my force. And Randy, good idea about adding a full machine gun platoon. I think I may have to do an American medium machine gun platoon at least. And my Brits don't have any heavy machine guns yet, so might have to bend my
Yeah,
arm a little bit and get some of those. Of
yeah. I don't think they
course,
even
they'll be
have that option. There's
who, the
there's very
British.
few there's very few armies that actually have a heavy machine gun in in their list. Period.
The British had a medium for sure.
Yeah, but you won't find a
Um,
heavy. I mean, they may have historically had a heavy, but not in bolt action.
Not in bolt action, and here's the reason behind that. Just some esoteria. We talked about this specifically. The German machine gun really didn't change in caliber. It was how you had it set up
Yeah,
really determined its function. The heavy, medium, and light were actually all MG42. It just depended on how much ammunition you had for it and how many changeout barrels. Americans and Russians were a little different animal. The Russians did a copy of our heavy called the 12.7 that they used. And then, of course, their medium was actually it weighed like a heavy, but it was a medium machine gun. I think to your point, Randy, I think the British pretty much fielded a medium. But again, if you had extra ammo or extra support for it, it could have the same effect as a heavy. Again, I'm kind of thinking about squad leader where you've got both a British medium and a British heavy that's available.
yeah.
And I'm sure it has. In the case of the British, it's like the Germans. And guys, you're welcome to correct us on that. Matter of fact, Randy, it probably wouldn't be bad for us to Wikipedia British heavy machine guns. But to your point, not everybody had heavies in bolt action, and they still won't. I don't think the Japanese fielded a heavy.
Yeah, and
The
if you've ever,
Italians, I don't think the Italians did either.
yeah, and most of them were firing around a 30 caliber round. If you ever look at a 50 caliber Modus shell, it's
Yeah,
impressive. I mean, it really
yeah.
is.
I used
You
to have a
would
spent
you
shell
would
that sat on
not
my
want to
desk.
get hit by that bullet. I can tell you right
Oh,
now.
yeah,
It cuts you
yeah,
right in half.
yeah. And there's a reason it gets that +1 pen. That half inch is going to punch holes in most buildings and a lot of armor and just about and any person it
Yeah,
touches.
I think
Yeah.
that bullet will penetrate easily a half inch of armor plating.
Yep. Yeah. So there you go. All right, guys. We hope you've enjoyed it. I've had a couple people say they enjoy listening to a couple of guys have fun, and we are certainly enjoying talking about our two favorite
Oh,
hobbies, wargaming and bolt action. Enjoy
I'm
talking to our
chomping at the
friends.
bit.
At some point, we'll do some live streams. I can't live stream on YouTube yet because I don't have enough subscribers. So again, subscribe, tell your friends,
Subscribe.
and then we can go ahead and go live stream and let you guys know when we're live streaming. I think that's going to be it for today. I'll be
Mhm.
looking for us again next week, and thank you for your time and attention. Good evening.
All right. See you, everybody.